Hello, hello, and welcome to Decaf, a production of the Beacon Center of Tennessee. Taylor and Mark are back with you. And honestly, Mark, I kind of miss this. I don't miss the technical difficulties we have, like you pointed out before we got on here, but we have gone from weekly podcasts to monthly podcasts, and I kind of miss it. Like we talk as much as we ever did, maybe more, but I do miss this kind of.
Yeah, well, once we hire three more people, we can do it. We can do it daily at that point. But yeah, we obviously have a lot going on, but it is fun. It's always good to do it when we have time. So
Yes, it is. Yeah. We're Mark and I are a little bit we're a little busy these days, but it is good to be back with you guys to talk about some hot topics and give you some hot takes. We will be talking about March Madness here in a little while, but I want to kick this off by saying by the time you guys are seeing this, I might not be so proud to wear I will always be proud to wear Alabama colors, but I might not be able to wear Alabama colors as a relevant thing in the tournament because we play North Carolina tonight. Do you know what time our game is, Mark? I don't even know. Can't keep up.
it's tonight. I think it's like 7.
Oh, great. I'll totally watch that. But I am wearing this in support today, sending some good vibes. I don't even know what that means to the Crimson Tide. But we'll talk about March Madness a little bit later. I've got some serious thoughts. But first, today is also, and I wish that I could wear a Brave shirt and an Alabama shirt on the same day. Today is also baseball's opening day. By the time you watch this, opening day will be yesterday or a couple days ago. But today is baseball's opening day. And it is no secret that we at Beacon love baseball. Justin and I actually did a podcast a couple of years ago from Arlington, Texas, when we were at a Braves playoff game. We were both wearing our Braves jerseys. We love baseball in our office, and we also love property rights. And so when the two can marry and come together, it is a beautiful day at Beacon. And we teased this the last time we did a podcast, and we hadn't released it yet, so we couldn't say anything. But as my precious fiance said, Beacon is going to war with Puerto Rico. We're not really, but we have filed a lawsuit defending Roberto Clemente's family against an egregious property rights theft by the government of Puerto Rico. Mark, do you want to explain what's going on, and then we can give our thoughts, because I'm clearly so excited about this I could burst.
Yeah, so just for people to understand too, Roberto Clemente is like one of the greatest baseball players of all time. Like he's a Hall of Famer. He is just an incredible player. I mean, they named the Man of the Year award for the MLB after him. So this is an enormous case from a media perspective because he was such a great player. So basically what happened is that we came on.
Player. He wasn't just a great player. He was a great person with a great heart. He did so much for his community. He had the athletic ability, but he also had the willingness and the drive to give back to the people in his community. And that legacy has been carried on by his children, which is why even more so, this is egregious.
Yeah, and that's why, he won. That's why they named the Man of the Year award after him, because it's like the best person in baseball. It's not the best player. So yeah, obviously he's got a lot of that. But yeah, it's an interesting case. And, when our lawyer found this, and we signed on to a case essentially that was already being that was already in court because basically they needed our expertise, it sounds like. And it has to do with the Puerto Rican government basically taking Roberto Clemente's trademark. So they basically put it on license plates, forced people to pay more money for it, and made like $15 million off of his name and likeness that was trademarked when it should have gone to his family's foundation. And they said, we're not going to pay you anything for this. We're not going to ask for your permission, and we're not going to pay you anything. We're not going to put any money in your foundation, which, of course, helps, underprivileged kids learn baseball across not just Puerto Rico, but across, a lot of places in the U.S. And ultimately, in our opinion, legally, this is a real problem. And it's a real problem that, states and localities across the country can take your property, whether intellectual or physical, take it, not give you anything back, and that's somehow legal. So this case, while it seems weird that we're suing the Puerto Rican government, it's obviously Puerto Rico is part of the U.S., and this law could have, long-standing impacts on the entire country, including in Tennessee, because the idea that government can take property without asking permission, that was trademarked in the correct way, or you own, without giving any money back to the person who owns that trademark is a real issue. And it's kind of against our fundamental founding of what, believing that people can own property and property rights. And that's, it's a great lawsuit. It's going to get media attention. And people have asked, why are we doing it? It could have such big impact on the state and on the country generally.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but we're suing on the federal level, meaning that it's in a district where this could impact a lot of different states and it could impact Tennesseans. I mean, think about all of the famous people from Tennessee. Think about, I don't know, like equate it to something here at home. Say Dolly Parton's family trademarked her name, image, and likeness, and then Tennessee's government said, we're actually just going to make license plates with her face on them and we're going to rake in all this money and none of it's going to go toward, let's say it went toward her imagination library because I know she has those license plates now. We're just going to rake in all this money and you guys can't have it. That's effectively what's going on with Roberto Clemente's family in Puerto Rico. And his family doesn't want this money for themselves. They're not greedy people. I had a Zoom call with them. I've talked to them. I've met them. They're not greedy people. They want to put more into their community and carry on the legacy that their father did by helping young people gain confidence through baseball. It's a beautiful thing that they're trying to do. And what Puerto Rico did was absolutely egregious and wrong. So happy opening day in honor of baseball and in honor of property rights. We are pursuing this. And I think our team is more excited about this case than we've been about anything in a really long time.
It's really cool. And the one thing that you kind of just to go off your point is that their family, their reputation's really taking a hit there because the Puerto Rican government is forcing people to pay more money in Puerto Rico, which, the economy is not good there right now. They're having a lot of issues. And they're saying you have to pay more money for this license plate. And guess what? A lot of the people in Puerto Rico think, well, that's Roberto Clemente making a bunch of money and his family making money off it. They're not making a dime. It's all the Puerto Rican government. So on top of just this idea of, property rights, it is hurting their reputation, which all they care about is trying to, enhance the lives of Puerto Rican people. And instead they're having this reputation like, oh, they're just trying to steal money from us when it's actually the government stealing money. So it really is a PR problem for them, not just a something where it comes down to property rights. So this is hopefully something that will be resolved in court, and hopefully, we'll be able to set a precedent, because that's why we did this case. We want to set a precedent nationally, which also would have impacts on Tennessee, and that's why we, file this in federal court, and that we hope to get a good ruling back, and and hopefully, and it could even potentially go to the U.S. Supreme Court, which would be obviously a huge deal for us. But the main reason we want to do this is people can own property. They can own their trademarks. They can own land. And the Puerto Rican government trying to take that away is a real problem.
Yeah, and if you have any more questions about it or you want to see more about it, two things you can look at. One, the case page on our website. We have incredible pictures of Roberto Clemente that his family sent to me, and they were so moving. And then Dennis Ferrier with Fox 17 did a Ferrier Files story on this, and it was so good. Dennis is a thorough researcher. He created such a good story about this. Check it out on Fox 17's website or on our Facebook page or on our Twitter page. We've been really promoting it because Dennis did such a great job, and we care so much about this case. What this comes down to is children trying to preserve the legacy of their father and the government getting in the way of that and manipulating it and taking it for selfish gains. So we'll update you more as this story goes on and this case goes on, but we're really thrilled about this. Let us know what you think. We're excited to be a part of helping to preserve this family's beautiful legacy.
And one last thing, let's give a shout out to our lawyer. Let's give a shout out to our lawyer, Wen and Ben, who filed this case. And, Dennis is right about a lot of things. We are not undefeated in terms of our lawsuits, but we have the best record I've ever seen for any kind of state policy think tank. So, we got to thank Braden and Wen has really carried on that legacy and even, enhanced that. So we have such a good legal team, and shout out to them for finding this case, for filing this case. And, they've already been really successful as a team. So we're very lucky to have them.
We are very lucky to have them. They're easy to work with. They're nice. They're fun. And they let us do cool cases. Like, what more could you ask for? Switching gears in a major way to something tragic and sad. I guess what Puerto Rico did to the Clementes is tragic and sad, but this is tragic and sad too. And it happened on the mainland. I was so shocked on, I guess, Tuesday morning to wake up and see the news about what happened in Baltimore while we were all sleeping. I don't know. I have this irrational fear, and it might not be irrational. It might be something that everyone has, but I do not like driving over bridges. I never have. I'm horribly afraid of heights. I don't do roller coasters. I don't do window seats on airplanes. I am horribly afraid of heights. And so driving over bridges, I always hold my breath as long as I can. I roll down the windows. I just don't like it. And so I was absolutely sad and horrified and sick to my stomach to see what happened in Baltimore with the bridge and the boat and the work crew and the drivers. And the miscommunication and everything that happened, and imagining that moment of panic being on the boat or being on the bridge. I don't know. It was just so horrible. And I know you have some thoughts too, Mark, but I want to say it was so horrible that I don't know how Twitter could make it worse, but somehow they always do. And I don't know. I think we bring up things like this because Mark and I are both so passionate about civility and compassion. And when there is a national crisis, where is the civility and where is the compassion? It makes me even more nauseated, I think, than it just enhances the nausea of what the tragedy that's happened. I don't know, Mark, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, there was a lot of experts on bridges as of yesterday morning who, who knew that so
There
many people on Twitter were experts on bridges and infrastructure.
there always
Um,
are. There always are.
but I would say this. I would say this, and this is kind of something I've seen this time on the right, where you're turning a tragedy into a political talking point. It's very similar to what the left does with guns. Anytime there's a shooting, the left says, "Oh, well, it's this," and you try to make this crisis be something because but ultimately, this is something where a lot of the people on the right have gone after the mayor of Baltimore. They've gone after Mayor Pete, which, I mean, you can, again, not saying anything good about him, but it's like this idea that you're blaming them right away for a boat crashing into a bridge, which knocked down the bridge and the infrastructure and all that stuff. The same thing. It's like, you should really think about these people's families. The same way it's so horrendous when, every time a shooting happens, the left politicize it and makes it about their policies and the people they hate and all the people who have blood on their hands. I just seen the right do it with this. Not, of course, not all the right, but a lot of people are doing that. And guess what? I don't understand the infrastructure of it. And maybe there is something that could have been done. I haven't seen that yet, but like blaming Biden or Mayor Pete or the mayor of Baltimore because a boat hit a bridge. It wasn't like it just fell or that it was inspected yesterday and there was an issue with it. It's just sad. And I think, ultimately in times like this, you need to kind of go for compassion first and think about the family and the people who have lost loved ones and not politicize the incident. I see it a lot from the left. I really do. And I don't like it. And, the right also does it. And I think it's just sad. And, we should figure out what went wrong because that does matter if something went wrong. I mean, sometimes a gigantic boat that it weighs a lot of money can have a huge impact if it hits the bridge. And obviously somebody did a bad job on the boat because they didn't know how, but other than that, like we should of course look to see what went wrong. And if there is something, try to fix it. But like, laying all this blame before you even know the facts is just, it seems like to me it's a something right out of the left's playbook and the far left's playbook, and the right has fallen into that in this case.
Yeah, I actually talked about this last night at our Young Professionals chapter. We've started bringing in people with a lot of varying opinions on things. Like last month, we did both sides of the aisle, where we have a Democrat and a Republican legislator. Last night, we had a talk about zoning with Elaine Davis, who is a representative from Knoxville, and Rollin Horton, who is a Nashville Metro Councilman from my district. And they talked about zoning. And when the event was finished, everyone absolutely loved it. And we had this discussion about civility and how, even if you don't agree, at one point, Representative Davis said to Councilman Horton, "We agree, we just disagree on how to get there. We agree on the end point, but we disagree on how to get there." And it brought up a really important conversation about civility and the fact that you don't have to agree with people to respect them. And I think that in this outrage culture and the social media culture and media culture, we've totally lost that. There's a mindset of you toe the line or you're dead to me. And I just don't really, that's not how I was raised. I disagree with my mother on so many things, and I love her, and my sister, and I love her. They're my best friends. I disagree with Blake on so many things, and I love him, and I'm marrying him. I still respect these people, even though we disagree. We might not vote the same every time, and we might not see an issue the same way every single time, but I respect them. And I think that people expect respect, but they aren't willing to give it to others. And that to me is like somewhere where you need to look inward. And so, in times of crisis, in times of tragedy, in times where you're just sitting at the coffee shop and someone starts to talk to you about their political views, like you don't have to agree, but I do think we're called to respect people because that's how you have a civil conversation and that's how we get from point A to point B, even though we might disagree on the way to get there. Um, that just, I don't know. I just feel like I have to stay off Twitter at times like this, and I'm happy to do it. I don't like social media. Everyone knows that, but it's just disturbing and it makes me really sad. That's really all I can say about it. I'm like tearing up right now. It makes me sad.
I would just say too, outside of that, I mean, there's always going to be, especially there's never civil discourse when you talk about some policies, but I do think
Right.
the exploiting tragedies is a
Yeah.
really bad thing. It's a really bad, look you know, for America. And I mean, and it's not just
Yeah.
America, it's all across the thing, but it's like,
Mhm.
I think you have truthfully two people running for president who don't show much civility to each other. Either of them do. And, I think that does, trickle down and I think it's okay to have strong disagreements. And honestly, there is some issues where,
Sure.
people try to do this. And I think the left, and the right have both done that. But I would just say when there's something that's a tragedy like this, to not go right to, oh, let me demonize my political opponent or let me demonize something I don't like, whether it's guns or, again, Mayor Pete. It's like, let's feel for the family. And if there is an issue after we really go into stuff, then you can bring it up. But at this point, like, just people have just lost loved ones. And this idea that you're going to just talk about, oh, I don't like this gun law. We need to change this. Where this person just like, I just want to, like, my son just died. My 12-year-old son just died. I don't want to hear you talking about how guns are the problem and not this crazy lunatic. And like, and the same thing here. I don't want to talk about how Mayor Peter, the mayor of Baltimore, is the problem when, like, I just lost my child in this freak accident on a bridge. So I think it's a good thing to think about. And our hearts go out to everybody who was affected in the
Mhm.
bridge collapse. And, hopefully they build it back and it, and the families are remembered.
Yeah, it is a tragedy, and I think rather than being outrage focused, being solution focused is the kind of way to be. But I think Americans have become so outrage focused, and you can blame that on a lot of things. But I look inward. I know Mark and I both do this. We look inward and say, are we being solution focused, or are we like riding the wave of outrage? And I think that's a question that we can all ask ourselves when we start to think about things and view it through that lens. Switching gears again to something a little happier that I alluded to at the beginning of the episode, and the reason why I am wearing my cutie little vintage Alabama sweater. Vintage looking, it's not vintage. I got it branded for Christmas. But March Madness is happening, and Mark is the happiest boy in all the land. He took off last Thursday and Friday to be able to watch it. And I was putting out a fire and I called him and he was at the bar watching basketball. And, I would say something and it would be really quiet. And I knew there was an intense play going on. So I waited until the play was over and then we talked about it. But um, I think it's fun that you enjoy this. I turned on basketball the other day and I really tried for like a few minutes and then I was like, I can't do it. And I turned on Frasier. So like, I personally can't do it, but um, I know that you have some big thoughts about what's going to happen. I don't know what your bracket says, but all that matters to me is that I'm beating Blake. That's all that matters, really.
That's good. Yeah, and it's honestly been a little bit of a disappointing tournament so far. I mean, you had the really cool Oakland upset over Kentucky, and then the
Mhm.
very exciting, which I didn't even tell you about this. Somebody almost tried to fight me at a bar because I was cheering for Yale over Auburn. An Auburn fan, like an old man, tried to say like
Oh,
he was just mad that we were clapping for Yale because we bet on them, and literally tried to get in a fight with me. I'm like, I don't know what
classic
you're doing. I'm just
Auburn.
trying to.
Classic Auburn. That's all I got to say about that. Classic Auburn. And I also picked Yale over Auburn because let me tell you what, I will never pick Auburn to advance at any time ever in any sport. So, like, good for you, Mark. I fully support you there.
Well, I'm with you on Auburn fans now. Not all of them, but that was a terrible experience. I'm like, and even some guy who actually was an Alabama fan came over to me. He's like, that guy has been awful the whole day. Like, I'm sorry you had to deal with that. So it was it was a weird day where I'm
Solidarity.
like, I guess I'm with Alabama fans right now. But it's been not a great tournament so far. There's not been the upsets. There's not been the great games. But the one benefit is that a lot of the best teams are still left. Every 1 and 2 seed in the country is still left, all 8 of them. So it should be a really exciting game. My bracket is still officially intact. I still have Houston winning. I still have it's probably wrong, but I still have Iowa State in the Final Four and going to the championship. So it's been a good tournament. I think that UNC game is going to be fun tonight. There's been a lot of good games. Everybody and their brother thinks UConn's going to win the national championship. That's like the odds-on favorite. I wish I could just bet against them and just bet for all the other teams because it's pretty close to 50-50 at this point. But if you're watching, I would say there's a crazy game, but A&M really came close, but Houston survived. So I'm still on Houston winning it all. I'd like to see them do that. My alma mater, Marquette, is in the Sweet 16 for the first time in 10
Ooh,
years. So we're in the Sweet 16, and we're favored because we have NC State. So we have a really great chance to get the Elite Eight. I don't know that we can win the national championship. I don't know that we have quite the talent to do that, but it's been exciting because the last time we were in the Sweet 16, I watched them live in DC. They were there in 2013. So it's exciting to be back there and
wow.
go Marquette.
Well, I will say that we were watching the Marquette game the other day, and it was exciting to watch. Us cheering for Marquette, of course. I have UConn winning. I obviously I don't pay attention to this throughout the year. So when it was almost time for the brackets to be submitted, I remembered that I needed to do a bracket. So I read a bunch of articles and I counted the number of people that said UConn, and I counted the number of people that said Houston, and more people said UConn, and so I picked UConn, and Blake picked Houston. But we've had them play like we both have the same Final Four, but he has Houston winning and I have UConn winning, which is like
Ooh.
kind of crazy. Like we were not even in the same house. Like he was at his house, I was at my house, and we still picked the same Final Four. Fun fact though, he did a women's bracket just to put MTSU women as winning, just to do it for his alma mater. After the first round, he was in the top 1,000 brackets in the country. He was like 99.8% correct after the first round. And he didn't even look at the picks. He just went and started picking random things just to get MTSU to number one. I don't know how it's doing now, but it was kind of crazy. He was like, I should have just closed my eyes and picked the men's too. I would have been doing really well.
Well, so I think what he did, I saw is that every single favorite, I think, won in the first round except for MTSU. So all he had to do, like that, and that's why the
Oh,
women's tournament's not as good because the favorites always
yeah.
win. There's not fun games. I think MTSU was the only first round upset to happen. So it makes sense. He probably just picked the higher seed or the lower seed in
Hmm.
every instance except MTSU, which works out well. So yeah, it's,
Worked out.
you know, I know everyone's about Caitlin Clark in the women's tournament. I have been paying attention. It at this point it lacks the fun of the men's tournament
Yeah.
because those upsets aren't there. You pretty much
Hmm.
always know that the one seeds are going to be the final four, two seeds maybe. There's not,
Hmm.
14, 15, 16 upsets that happen in the men's never happen in the women's. So as much as people talk about how women's basketball is more exciting, it's not. It could be if some of these lower seeded teams, but like when you see a first round 1 versus 16 be a 60-point game and the spread's 50 points, like that's not fun. When you see more parity there, I'll be interested. But it is, I mean, I'm
Yeah.
excited that Caitlin Clark has brought more fans to the game of basketball, female fans. I do think
Yeah, for
I
sure.
was not, I was not going to make the final four and everyone is too high on them because of one player, but it's cool that people are into that. But women's basketball has a long way to go to be as exciting as men's in the college level. And I'm not saying because they're not as good or whatever. I mean, I don't think they are. They're not as fun to watch, but that's not the point. The point is there's not the
Yeah.
parity that's needed where the fun part of the NCAA tournament is the 14 over three upsets. That doesn't happen in women's
Right.
basketball. And until that happens, and all the one seeds, like you had, an 11 seed. I mean, Stephanie and Holtno, I mean, VCU was like an 11 seed that went to the final four. That never happens in women. So until that kind of thing
Yeah.
starts happening, it just can't be as exciting.
No, I totally agree. You know, I love chaos. When we were talking about football season last fall, and I was like, it's the last 4 weeks of football season. I want chaos. Like I love chaos. That is why I love March Madness. I don't watch basketball any other time of the year, but I will be watching that evening program where they're going over the games and just soaking in the chaos. I love it. And you're totally right. And I actually 100% agree with you. I'm girl power all day long, but without the chaos, as a non-basketball fan, I'm straight up not interested. Before we wrap up for the day, I want to talk about, I guess this is kind of another tragedy that has been taken and gone crazy with. And now we have some answers, and people are still saying we don't have answers. So it's no surprise to anyone that I am obsessed with Kate Middleton and the royal family. Okay. Like Jason hates it because he's Canadian and he's like, I'm so glad that America doesn't have royals, but I love the royal family. Classy, poised, always dressed well. I don't know. I just admire them. I, for the longest time, wore the same perfume that Kate Middleton wears. Like I love it. So when it was announced in January that she was very sick, I got really invested in that. And then Twitter just for some reason 2-3 weeks ago absolutely took off with conspiracy theories. And listen, okay, I'll just say it. I was entertained. Okay, I was very entertained. We talked about it in our girls group text. We talked about it with our coworkers group text. We were all talking about it because it just seemed weird. And not because of any reason. Like, I didn't necessarily think she was hiding anything nefarious or anything like that, but I get caught up in funny tweets all the time. I watch the Instagram reels, I listen to the podcast. I'm a pop culture girly. And then when she came out and said she had cancer, obviously it was so sad and so tragic. I watched the announcement live with Dave, what's the name? The guy on ABC, Dave Weir. How do you say his name? I don't know. David
I don't
Weir.
even know who
I
that
don't know.
is. Yeah.
He covered the announcement and I
Oh,
watched
David
it
Muir?
live. What? Yeah, how do you say his name? I don't
Yeah,
know how to
David
say his name. I've never watched him before.
Muir. Muir.
Muir. Okay.
Muir. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, I watched that. It was so sad, so tragic, and then everybody went and like deleted their tweets. And then now there's all this speculation on Twitter about how the video of her was a deep fake. And I don't know, guys. I'm like, I, I was entertained for a while. It kept my attention for a little bit. But when the woman says she's got cancer, let her live. I don't know. I kind of feel the same way about it as I feel about the boat thing. It's a tragedy. Let it let it lie. I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are. You might disagree with me on that.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this. First of all, I understand that there was a lot of questions around what was happening because it was clear that there were and of course the I guess the queen, I don't even know what they call the royal family handled it poorly with some of the
Oh, so
stuff they put
bad.
on Twitter and things
So
like that.
bad.
But there's two things to remember. First of all, they brought all these horrible things. It wasn't just like, oh, where is she? Here's some. It was like these horrible things about, her husband maybe being gay, all these mistresses that it was horrible. I mean, they brought up these awful things that were, probably not true, to make it seem like that. So it wasn't just like, oh, we don't know where she is, let's make jokes. It's like, there's some like, oh, let's bring up these awful things about her family's potential past and rumors that are unsubstantiated that could actually like destroy a marriage. It was horrible, the stuff they brought up.
Yeah. Well, and that
Um,
royal that ended his own life recently, they were like, maybe William killed him and he was
yep,
Kate's
yep.
man on the side. Like all this stuff. Like, guys, calm down. Good Lord.
And
Second point though, Mark.
all these people that talk about, oh, we got to wait till the facts come out, all these things, and we hear like Stephen Colbert's making jokes. All these people who, when it's anything, they're like, we got to wait for the facts to come out. Oh, we have to be right with the CDC on everything, and all like it's these people made jokes, and especially on the left side, it's like they look like morons. They are inconsistent with what they believe in because they're making all these jokes about it. They say they know what happened, all these things, and they were wrong, and it was horrible, and what's going on is horrible. But it's like, just remember not to throw stones in glass houses. And that's what people like Stephen Colbert have done. And a lot of people who have made jokes about it. If you make a joke about something else, they're like, oh, no, come on. They don't have the facts. They're doing things like this is exactly what you did. And now you look like you have egg on your face. So, I mean, I understand people being interested. I mean, I was a little interested because I'm just like, oh, I wonder where she's at. And of course, these things, and they had all these things about, but it's not, I mean, what people had done to their family just because they didn't know. And guess what? Like, even though they're public figures, they deserve privacy. I mean, if it was a divorce or it was something else, it's like, why do you have to, I mean, I don't care about them. They mean nothing to me. I don't care about the Royals. They're not important in any way. But like, it just is sad that like they can't just have some privacy in their lives and that the media and everything needs to care about everything that's going on. The fact that she hasn't been in public in 2 months. I mean, people go through stuff and, I know that they're public figures, so they kind of sign up for that. But of course, as always, the media takes it way too far. And a lot of the media members who would be, horrified if this was, something with, they would never take this kind of approach if it was a Democratic politician, right?
No.
And it's horrible.
I think it goes to say, like, I have just a personal anecdote, but I used to be like really judgmental and really weird about stuff. And then I had an embarrassing situation, and someone said to me, if you expect grace, you've got to give grace, and you haven't given a lot of grace. I just
Ooh.
think that I know it was a humbling moment. It was probably 10 or 12 years ago. It was a humbling moment. And that really changed the way that I operate and the way that I think about things. And I give a lot of grace now because I know that I need a lot of grace. And so I don't know, and all these people like in the media, they come after certain people. And then when they mess up or something happens and they retreat, everyone comes after them. It's like, don't throw stones. That's the whole point. Don't throw stones.
Yeah.
It's funny, it's entertaining, whatever. But when the woman comes out and she says she has cancer and you have thrown all these horrendous allegations at the royal family, and listen, I don't think that they're perfect by any means, but they're people and they're going through something. So just let the woman live and recover and be happy and make your jokes about something else. Like if that's all you have to joke about, like be more creative. I don't know.
But it's also, it's the same thing. It's like, oh, we have to hear about all these, we need all this, racial sensitivity from Jimmy Kimmel, like the guy who wore blackface for a bunch of skits in the Man Show. It's like, and it's like, fine. I mean, like, I get it. You're trying to be funny and like, but like, you can't have it both ways. And I think that that's what all these people want to do is they want to have it both ways. They want to say, oh, I'm this person who's so morally like, morally superior to everyone else. But then when I do this, it's like, yeah, but whatever, it was just a mistake. And like, they don't give the same grace to other people that they expect. So it's annoying. I understand why people were curious about it. If you care about the royal family, which again, I do not, but if you care about it, I understand you haven't seen her in a while, and it looks like, the families faking Twitter things or whatever, or pictures, or using old pictures to talk about what's going on currently. But, same thing. We hope the best for the families of Baltimore. We hope the best for, is it Princess Kate? Is that right? Princess of Wales?
Yeah,
Is that,
Kate, the Princess of Wales.
Princess of Wales.
Catherine.
So we hope the
Yeah.
best for them and that whole family.
I think the moral
Except
of today's
except for Andrew.
podcast. Yeah, except for Andrew. We don't wish the
I,
best for
I
him.
don't know.
Just toss that in.
Yeah.
I think the moral of today's podcast is, if you expect grace, you got to give grace. That, I think, is just kind of wraps up everything we've kind of talked about. If you want grace, give grace back. Be respectful, be kind, be civil, and carry on. Thank you so much for listening today. We've missed you guys. If you haven't already, you should subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch on our social media channels. Thanks for being here. We appreciate you, and we will see you next time we're here.